All right, KISS Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a KISS-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome to episode 26 of the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host, Lonnie Weishauer, stlkiss on the FAQ message board. And this week I am joined by, of course, Julian, the admin, Ken, 69th Blizzard, and Marcus Almighty. Gentlemen, how are you tonight?
Good.
I'm good.
So, 26 episodes, guys. That's 6 months worth of KissFAQ podcasts. That's 6 months. That's longer than Axl Rose was married to Erin Everly. And it's longer than Kim Kardashian was married to Chris Humphries. Maybe even combined. So
It's a real milestone.
So it's really been a fun ride this far, and I know I've thoroughly enjoyed the shows, and not just the shows I've been on, but the shows I've gotten to listen to also. And personally, I just want to thank Julian not only for giving the KissFAQ message board posters a voice on this podcast, but for also taking the time to set up and record and post all these episodes.
Well, I got to give a shout out to Tim, because Tim, way back when Three Sides was getting started, he said, "Hey, look what Three Sides are doing." He pointed, towards that podcast. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then years later, Daniel comes in and says, why don't we do it? And all of a sudden, I'm receptive to the idea. So, and I'd just like to give a shout out to Tim. No longer on the board as much. I think he lurks a little bit. But Daniel for being the instigator who got this whole thing started. So, Daniel.
That's very cool. That was actually going to be one of my questions to you here in a minute, because you've said in the past that it wasn't your idea to do this.
No.
So, it may sound cliche, and you guys may not believe this, but at the first of the year, I made a promise to myself that I was going to make my own KissFAQ, not my own KissFAQ, but my own KISS podcast in 2015, somehow, some way. And about the same time, Julian, you guys started the FAQ podcast around the first of the year. And I kind of latched onto this little production, and here we are 6 months later. So it's really cool. So thank you for doing it. And also thank you, Ken, and all the hosts, Ken and Mark, but also Alex, and Andrew, Nigel, Joel, Jay, Daniel, and Aline. And thank you for all the listeners every week. We really appreciate you guys listening and you guys commenting not only on the FAQ message board, but on YouTube as well. I love reading all the comments and hearing you guys' different perspectives, and I'll comment back on you guys too to see what's going on. So I've had a great time doing this the last 6 months, and I hope you guys have had a good time listening as well. I want to see how the show develops and continue to grow the show in the future. So.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, today's topic is a continuation from episode 24, which was the Kissingles topic. We left off at Creatures of the Night, which was a good stopping point, considering it's the last makeup album. Kiss was entering a new era, so we're going to start part 2 of this episode tonight. So, after Creatures comes Lick It Up, and Kiss enters a new direction with 2 singles off the album, Lick It Up and All Hell's Breaking Loose. And they shoot 2 videos also. It's 1983. MTV has really become a staple for the music business and for promoting albums and singles as well. So, Lick It Up is not one of my top albums, and I've talked about that on other episodes before. Big success with the title track. And All Hell's Breaking Loose is, I don't know, I could take or leave All Hell's Breaking Loose personally. For my money, I would have taken A Million to One as my second single off of Lick It Up, because I'm getting a lot of positive feedback already, which is good. Because the power ballad, I mean, you're talking 1983, the power ballad was huge. And we've talked before that there was a formula that bands followed with albums and how they promoted them with, you know, a rock single to start and then the power ballad to come afterwards. And personally, I think they would have had a lot of success with that song. It's a great song, and when Paul played it live on the Live to Win tour, it sounded fantastic when it was played live. It was one of those songs you kind of think about, well, I wonder how it would interpret live with the chorus and that, but it really sounded fantastic when he did it on the Live to Win tour. And if I was going to do two singles off of Lick It Up, I personally would have really gone with Lick It Up and A Million to One. Ken, what do you think about the singles on Lick It Up?
I have to agree with you.
Nice.
Lick It Up is a no-brainer. Great song. So that's no problem. That's a simple one. And even though I do like All Hell's Breaking Loose, I do like it. It's not single worthy, I don't think, as a second single. So A Million to One was my choice also. I think it's a great song. To me, it almost could have been the first single. It's pretty. It's not a typical power ballad, but it's kind of an in between. Mm-hmm. Ballad and your upbeat song. So it's a good, well written song, and I love it. That's one of my favorites off the album. So I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Right.
Wait till we get to 1992. Mark, what do you think about the singles on Lick It Up?
Just like everybody else said, I think Lick It Up is pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, that was a definite single right off the starting gate there. I also agree with you guys that I think Million to One should have been the second single as well. I mean, the formula that we talked about prior would have benefited them greatly for this too. If they would have went with the ballad second, and even if they went with a possible third single, it would have still been better to have Million to One as the second one. The only thing I have an issue with these singles is that whose bright idea was it to put Dance All Over Your Face as a B-side for Lick It Up? Oh, God. What a horrendous song to put on there. But, I mean, I think they would have been better off at maybe putting, like, Exciter on the B-side of, you know, Lick It Up, like Keep It Really Rockin' or something, you know. But I still think that Lick It Up is a great opening single to come out with. And like I said, A Million to One would have been my choice as well for a second single. I don't hate All Hell's Breaking Loose, but it's I would take it or leave it as well. I mean, it's not really anything to write home to mom about. Maybe they were just giving Eric a bone since they don't have anything with him singing on it. Maybe just put something there that he actually wrote, and let him have a little bit of a writing credit for once, right? So, but yeah. That's my only thing. I mean, Young and Wasted is the B-side, ironically, on All Hell's Breaking Loose, which I think he ends up singing live, I think, Eric, right? So that's kind of ironic. Yeah, so I actually would have thought it would have been better to flip that, put Young and Wasted and put All Hell's Breaking Loose as the B-side. I would have liked that better, probably, but that's just my opinion, right? So,
speaking of All Hell's Breaking Loose, I was on KISS Cruise 2, and they're doing that acoustic set, and they're just kind of screwing around a little bit in between songs. At one point, Paul Stanley does a little bit of the first part of the rap intro to All Hell's Breaking Loose, and I start singing it, and the people around me are even the people around me on the KISS Cruise, what are you talking? What are you even saying? And people didn't even people in the cruise didn't even recognize it. It's pretty funny.
Not popular, eh?
No. Julian, what about you? Look it up.
I have a real problem with Lick It Up as the single. And I don't know whether it's because it was a bomb and this is, revisionist history to a certain extent. But when you looked at bands like Motley Crue who are putting, Looks That Kill, followed by Too Young to Fall in Love. So you had a bit of a rocker, and then you had a bit of, again, the power ballad. You had kind of all of that coming together in the 80s. I mean, Dokken... Just Got Lucky, Alone Again, for Tooth and Nail, though that's 84, but, same kind of era, and I can't think of what Twisted Sister was doing at the time. I just don't see Lick It Up as being enough of a single to really take advantage of the unmasking. It wasn't that different. It wasn't that interesting. It wasn't that stunning. I would have gone with Exciter. Something high octane off the album, and maybe Lick It Up as the B-side. I mean, the single was a dud. 66 on the Billboard. I think it did marginally better elsewhere. Oh yeah, 24 in Switzerland. Go Switzerland. So it really didn't do much, so it's easy to revise it after the fact. And of course, I wasn't a fan at the time, so I really can't, fit into that thing. I was sitting there listening to Pyromania in 83 and Duran Duran, so I'm probably not a very good character witness for KISS at that time. Second single, I mean, they would have known that had not worked. Why on earth did they do All Hell's Breaking Loose? Again, if they went with Lick It Up and they saw the reaction that it got, they knew they were on the wrong track, that they weren't getting enough publicity out of the unmasking, that they needed to do something highly visual. And both of those videos, who's the director? Marty, whatever. Marty.
That's fine.
They were pretty substandard. They weren't visually attacking. I mean, if you look at the Creatures video the year before, I Love It Loud, that's a highly visual video that the band did. They just did something, everyone else was doing. There was nothing different. So, second single, I got to agree with 1,000,000 to 1, the power ballad. Go that route. When Paul did that in San Francisco, I mean, we already knew that it was coming. I got weak in the knees. I was like, holy shit. He's doing it tonight. He hasn't changed the set list. Thank you, Paul. And wow, just a fantastic. But I think the B-side selection for the US single sucked. At least in Europe, you had Not for the Innocent as the B-side to Lick It Up. So, that I think's a better song. It's more gritty and more you'd expect for KISS. It's gutter rock. I think for a B-side for 1,000,000 to 1, I would go with On the Eighth Day. Something out of left field. Something like let Vinny wank all over his fretboard. It may have resonated, but their choices in the U.S. Did not.
Did you say that the Not for the Innocent was the B-side in Europe, you said?
In England, at least, it was.
Because I have a 45 on Lick It Up, and for some reason mine had Not for the Innocent on the B-side. That's why I was always wondering. Obviously, it wasn't a Canadian 45, so...
Well, if you go to the KissFAQ, Kiss Monster, the discography, I've forgotten all this stuff with, having gotten rid of all my singles, so I can't remember what they had in what country. But I know Exciter was in one country, so there were better choices elsewhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, all right, let's move on to Animalize. 2 singles off of that one as well. Heaven's on Fire, with the B-side of Lonely is the Hunter. And Thrills in the Night, with a B-side of Burn, Bitch, Burn.
Oh, my God.
We're starting to see a trend here with all Paul Stanley's tunes, because Gene's mind, Gene's head is elsewhere at this point. That's a discussion for another show, but it's really Paul Stanley at this point. Paul's really taken the band by the horns at this point, and Heaven's on Fire, great single, great track, absolutely love it. One of my favorite KISS songs, especially from this period, maybe one of my favorite KISS songs overall too. Thrills in the Night, it's okay. I don't have issues with it. Personally, I really like I've Had Enough Into the Fire. It's really just guitar driven. You can really feel Mark St. John's presence on that tune, especially with what was popular at the time in 1984 when that came out. You can really hear the 80s guitar presence especially on that song, how it opens up the guitar solo. So I would have really gone with Heaven's on Fire and I've Had Enough Into the Fire as my 2 singles instead of Thrills in the Night. I like Thrills in the Night though. I would have thrown it on a B-side instead of maybe Lonely as the Hunter. But Personally, that's my thoughts on there. 2 videos for the album as well, with 2 respected singles. So, Mark, what do you think about Animalize's single selection?
Well, once again, I think the first single was a no-brainer, obviously. I think that they knew Heavens on Fire was going to be the strong single right from the get-go. I think pretty much when they were done mixing that record, they pretty much knew already that was going to be the single. Thrills in the Night, it's okay. I don't mind it, but I agree with you. I think I've Had Enough Into the Fire would be a much better second single for an A-side, much more grabbier, more catchier for a single. I mean, isn't that what you want? Don't you want to like catch people's attention? I just kind of thought that Thrills in the Night was a little too laid back, mid-tempoed, and I don't know. I found it a bit dull. I mean, they could have went with such more exciting a song like Into the Fire there, but I have real issue with these B-sides. I mean, what genius decided Burn Bitch Burn should be a B-side? I mean, oh my god. I mean, a worse B-side you could not have picked. The same with Lonely as the Hunter has got to be another pile of dribble. I mean, it's just unbelievable, these B-sides. I mean, looking back at the track listing, though, I mean, really, they didn't have too much more to put for B-sides, I'm guessing.
But shot at Animalize from out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, Heaven's on Fire and I've Had Enough are the 2 probably strongest songs on the record. I mean, Get What You Can Take could have been a good single if he wouldn't have, dropped his F-bomb in the lyrics, because, I mean, I'm sure that's what they said. Okay, sorry, we can't use that now when you did that, right? But that's the only other song I could have seen that had some sort of legs, maybe, that could have been a single. So, but like I said, Heaven's on Fire gets a thumbs up. Thrills in the Night, I could take it or leave it. I still think I've Had Enough would have been a much better second single.
Julian, what about you for?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Mark. Heaven's on Fire is the obvious. Can't change it. But who picked those B-sides? I'd say Paul Stanley picked those B-sides. And here's Gene, this is what you get. When you're not around, I'm going to put your crappy songs on the B-sides of my singles. So if you want to have anything to say, Gene, get your ass back into the band and contribute. So I think he was being punished because Lonely as the Hunter is one of the worst songs in the catalog. I mean, it's not quite up there with Read My Body or Nothing Can Keep Me From Puking on You, but it's pretty dire. Second single, Thrills in the Night, I've never been a fan of the song, so I would just never have said to have done that. But I see where they were going. Again, it's the formula of something a little bit, you go with the rocker and then you go with the not rocker. I would have gone for the 1-2 punch and just gone Under the Gun, or even I've Had Enough. The up-tempo songs on that album and their Paul songs are better than everything else. B-sides, I would have picked the better Gene songs. I mean, While the City Sleeps is a better song than Lonely as the Hunter. Burn Bitch Burn. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, they were performed in concert early on in the tour, but the Animalize is a tough creature. There's not a lot to choose from on there. It's an album that's not dated well for me, so I agree with what Mark said.
There you go. Yeah. Ken, what about you?
Well, Heaven's on Fire is like the 3rd lead-off single in a row that pretty much doesn't have a guitar solo in it. It makes sense, but really not much of I Love It Loud had a very mini nothing guitar solo, and I don't think Heaven's on Fire had it either, or Lick It Up. Obviously, it just had the middle part. It was just interesting to me. I don't know why they excluded guitar solos in some of those songs, but the song Heaven's on Fire, perfect song, great song, no problem with it. Thrills in the Night, I'm gonna disagree with all you. I like Thrills in the Night as the second single. I think it's a great song. I always liked it. So the other thing with B-sides, I think B-sides, and I said this in the prior episode, that I think the intention for B-sides pretty much are throwaways. Except back in the old days when they did have only singles. Before albums came, they did a lot of singles back in the day, and then they would put their best songs on those singles, and sometimes you get double hits, right? A hit on one side and the other. But later on, once the albums came along, you started putting the bad song on the B side because you wanted to free up for more singles down the road and not use up your good song on a B side. So I think that's why we're seeing these choices on side B. But anyway, I do agree with these choices of these two songs. Though I do like I Had Enough, Into the Fire. That's a great song, but I don't know if I would have released that as a single.
That's a good point you bring up, too, about the guitar solos not being present on I Love It Loud, Look It Up, Heaven's Empire. Especially with Van Halen doing what they were doing at the time, being such a guitar-driven band, and Kiss is releasing singles they don't even have guitar solos on them as their lead singles for their new albums.
And weren't they also supposed to be kind of like pushing their new guitar players, saying how fantastic they are, and they released a single with no guitar solo on it? Like, gee, showing real confidence in your guitar players there if you're doing that,
You couldn't play that slow.
Yeah, but maybe they didn't have confidence from him from day one. So, but that was a really good point Ken made going back in history, that a lot of the B-sides were often non-album B-sides, and Here, Lonely is the Hunter and Burn Bitch Burn would be great non-album B-sides. Gene could put some quality material on there instead and just have those as the throwaways.
Yeah. I think that was called double A-sides back in the day. You were talking about when they had the two strong ones there. It was a double A-side.
Right. Good point. Well,
Julian, I'm going to let you lead things off here with Asylum.
Oh, yeah.
For just the one single with 3 videos.
And that's my problem. They only put Tears Are Falling, which is perfection. If you only get to do one single from that album, you might as well do the ultimate Paul Stanley power ballad of the 1980s. I'm sorry, it's a really good song. I love it. Is it as good as Who Wants to Be Lonely? No, but it's really good. So I have a problem. This is when I got into the band. So all of these videos on MTV, I would say would make great frickin' singles, because those are the ones that resonate with me the most for the beginning of my journey with the band. So can I replace Tears Are Falling? No. Easy. But would I have liked to sing Who Wants to Be Lonely and All Night as singles? Hell yeah.
But what a crime, though, having one single. Like, this is by far my favorite unmasked Kiss record, hands down. Like, I love Asylum.
Julian.
Yeah.
The checks in the post.
But one single, really? Like, what were they thinking? One single, like.
Yeah, and I got to agree with you. I never understood, why is this album neglected at the time? They go on tour and they put 5 songs from this album into the set. They only do the one single. They do the videos, but they never follow it up. The second single came out in, I think, Spain, Japan, I might be wrong on there, but in very few markets did the second single come out. And in a lot of other markets, Heaven's on Fire Live was the B-side to Tears Are Falling. So in the States, I can't even remember what is on the B-side. Any way you slice it, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's a very, very, again, it's a very poor choice of a B-side, apart from it being a throwaway. But for anyone who flipped it over, who hadn't bought the album, they're like, holy shit. What's the rest of the album like if this is, Gene's contribution again? So it's not doing Gene any favors or selling the album. So, poor B-side choice, regardless of the logic that goes into picking the B-side in 1985.
Mm-hmm. Ken, what do you think about Asylum and the one single?
Asylum should have had a different album cover, first of all. That's my least favorite album cover, I tell you. Anyway, Tears Are Falling, great, another no-brainer.
Yeah.
The thing is, with at this time, I don't know if this is a reason that they didn't go with a second single. Is I think back then most of the CDs was a newer thing at the time, so vinyl was starting to go away, right? And maybe you'd have some CD singles around that time, or I think so. But they were manufacturing these things back in Germany. There was no real U.S. plants at the time, so
right.
all the first CDs were coming out of Germany, I believe, and then Japan. So they were, and that was one of the reasons they said, well, we're charging you all this money, this 19 or 21 bucks an album, because we don't have plants here in the U.S. They said we'll lower the price once we start having plants, and that was a lie. They didn't really lower the price much, but that may be one of the reasons they only did one single. I can't find a reason why they wouldn't do a second single on either CD or vinyl. But still, I know vinyl was going away. Cassettes were going away.
Yeah, but Kissingles were just starting to take off. That had become a format. And look, just two examples. I know there are, obviously albums that have sold way more than most of the Kiss catalog combined, but Def Leppard Hysteria, 7 vinyl singles basically in the U.S., and Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. That's a ton. Motley Crue, what was it? Smoking in the Boys' Room, Home Sweet Home, and I think there was one other off, Theater of Pain, so that's an 85 album. So who knows? There must have been some other reason, I think, other than the economics of the dynamics.
It could have been the record company.
Yeah, hating the band.
Yeah, that could have been it.
Yeah, I think economics of the band at that point plays a large role into not being any more singles than just the one. Even though they did cut more videos, but just investing money.
Yeah, but they filmed a couple of those videos at the same time, so it was like a 2-for-1 deal. I think that was David Mallet on those ones in London. But Read, Kiss and Sell, basically mid-'80s, the latter part of the 80s, Kiss is fucked. So no singles, struggle to get the album. Don Johnson calls and wants his costume back from Paul.
Mark, any thoughts on Asylum?
Well, yeah, like I said, this is my favorite unmasked record by Kiss, and I would have been screaming bloody murder for more singles if I was involved with this organization. Not putting out Who Wants to Be Lonely is a crime. King of the Mountain, such a great song too. That could have been a great B-side. Much better than Any Way You Slice It. Give me a break. Was that All Night, right? That's the correct pronunciation of that, All Night. Even that is not a bad song. As ridiculous as the lyrics are in that, that's a pretty catchy song when you think about it. I'm just looking at the track listing, and really, even Gene's songs are bearable to some extent on this record. Much better than the ones on Asylum. On Animalize, sorry. And, I really like this record. I think also another factor on this is that it's not a very long record. It's only like 38 minutes long. You put it on and it's done before you know it. And there's no dragging along on this record. It comes and it goes and it's done. But, Tears Are Falling, great song. I think it's probably one of those songs from the 80s that most people probably remember hearing and probably remember from their catalog. And I think a lot of people, I even remember in high school, that's the song that even all the girls in high school used to dig from Kiss, So I think it was a good selection as a single. Again, the B-side I have issue with, but what else is new? And, my only problem with this is that there wasn't any more songs released for singles off this record. We just went through all why that could have possibly happened, but, I have no problem with that single. If I would have had a second one, I would have probably use King of the Mountain. That's a great song, you know, and use it with Who Wants to Be Lonely. Put Who Wants to Be Lonely A-side, King of the Mountain B-side. I mean, another great single right there. So, but yeah, I think that I have nothing ill to say about this record or its singles.
Yeah. Tears Are Falling was huge on MTV at the time, too. It was absolutely huge. That and Home Sweet Home were just back and forth as number 1 and number 2 videos for the longest time. And when KISS played Tears Are Falling in Vegas this fall, and I got to see them play that live for the first time ever, I was just ecstatic. And, you know, even at the end of the song, Paul Stanley comes out to the middle of the stage and he starts doing the thing with the windshield across the eye. And I look at my wife and I do the same thing. Just, what are you doing? Stop it. I go, no, that's the thing. She goes, no. So, yeah, I'm with you guys. Who Wants to Be Lonely would be a great second single. It's a great video. It's a great song. But, you know, I think a lot of the economics of the record company and what the record company thought of the band comes into play right here, and it's 80s KISS, and it is what it is to a certain extent. So we come back with Crazy Nights with 3 singles, 3 videos. Crazy Nights with a B-side of No No No. Reason to Live with a B-side of Thief in the Night, and Turn On the Night with a B-side of Hell or High Water. Ugh.
Oh, man.
On the B-side, I think we're really onto Ken's formula of B-sides being throwaways by this point. It's really the crap left over, I think, in my opinion. But Crazy Nights, and I mean, we can talk about the production on Crazy Nights and how we're really chasing trends with Want to Be Bon Jovi at this point. We talked about that to a certain extent last week with the bandwagon jumping, but Crazy Nights, good song, really big hit in the UK. Not as much here.
That's really not saying a lot. really big hit in the UK.
There you go. Reason to Live, following the pattern that has really been set in stone at this point of the ballad follow-up single.
Woohoo! Bigger hit than Crazy Nights.
and Turn On the Night. Okay. I'm not. If it was me, I would have scratched Turn On the Night, and I would use Fight Hell to Hold You as the 3rd single off that album. Anyway.
And now for something completely different.
All right. What I'm looking for is, anyway, I would have used Fight Hell to Hold You as my 3rd single instead of Turn On the Night. When I first bought the album, and Crazy Nights wasn't one of the first albums that I went out and bought. I was like 7 or 8 when Crazy Nights came out, so it's not one of the albums that I bought like the day it came out or anything like that. Even though I was a fan of the band, I wanted to know as much as I could about the band. When I listened to Crazy Nights, I really thought that, Fight Hell to Hold You, that's got to be a single off that album. And I was really shocked when I went back and found out that it wasn't a single off that album, because I really enjoyed that a lot more than Turn On the Night. That would have been my choice as the 3rd single. So I would have gone with Crazy Nights, Reason to Live, and Fight Hell to Hold You. And the B-sides, at this point are really, you're really just your throwaways at this point. And, Paul punishing Gene with the crap that he's turning in. Ken, what do you think about Crazy Nights?
I agree with their singles. Crazy Nights, Reason to Live, Turn On the Night. I agree with them. B-sides, again, we know that story. The thing is, it's the production of this stuff. And chasing Bon Jovi, chasing Heart. I think chasing Heart, Reason to Live is chasing Heart. I believe Ron Nevison also produced
Yep.
Heart, right? So
correct.
Yeah, so it's, this is an album that needs to be remixed.
Remade.
Remixed and remastered. Turn up the guitars, turn off the keyboards, and see what comes out. So, but I agree with their singles. Those are all good songs in my book, and I have no problem with it. So that's where I stand on Crazy Nights.
Oh, that's cool too. Julian, what about you?
As much as I would like to say they're poor choices, I think they're perfect choices from the album. Crazy Nights, the lead-off track, made sense. Reason to Live, also known as I Want to Know What Love Is, by Foreigner, had already been a hit, so it's actually one of my favorite Kiss songs from the 80s. I do really dig it, as much as I hate the album and as much as the album nearly made me not a Kiss fan. You got to remember becoming a fan in December 85, or really becoming a fan then, and then buying this piece of shit. It really is. It's tough to pick any song on there that would make it more successful, because there's a reason it wasn't successful. So Reason to Live is a good second single, and I think Turn on the Night, again, it's a good kind of rocking song. It's a little bit nondescript, and I agree with the case for I'll Fight Hell to Hold You. I guess anything's, that would have broken some glass windows, because again, it's got Paul going into the stratosphere a bit with his vocals, so I don't see that being very radio friendly. How do you compress those frickin' vocals down so people's heads don't explode? But I guess anything's better than releasing My Way as a single. So yeah, all good stuff. B-sides, whatever on
right.
that. There's just nothing really good to pick.
Mark, what about you for Crazy Nights?
Well, I think I'm going to be the third one in a row here to agree that I think these are all proper singles from this album. Crazy Nights, I think, is a no-brainer. It's probably the strongest song off the record. It's screaming to be a single. I mean, I think they already probably pretty much wrote it with the intention of it being a single. Reason to Live is the obvious second single, the ballad. And Ron Nevison is very good at doing these kind of syrupy sort of ballads, and it's right up his alley, so he did a good job with it. But, it's not my favorite song off the record by any stretch, but it's a good single. It probably was good for what it was trying to do, to catch another, bit of the market. The females, the housewives and stuff like that would probably like it on the radio listening to it. And to be honest, Turn on the Night is a guilty pleasure of mine, and I'll tell you why if you let me humor you for a second here.
Please.
I never used to like the song when it first came out, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I went to my very first NAMM show in California. It was a big thing for me. I was going there. I had a guitar endorsement with Jackson Guitars, and I was going there for my first time to check out the convention, and I rented a car, and I had a convertible Mustang. I put down the top, I turned on satellite radio, and that was the first song that I heard on the station, was Turn on the Night. And something about that song now gives me such a great memory of driving down the highway at night, listening to that song cranked in that car. I know people will say it's a cheesy song, but this song will forever put a smile on my face just because of that. I mean, it gave me such a great memory. Just whenever I hear this song now, I just think of California and driving down, in the Canadian winter time, like January. It was freezing here, and when landing in California, it was nice and warm and top down, shorts on, and it was just, it just brings back so many positive memories for me for this song. So, I'm almost, I almost thought about it, if they would have put No, No, No on instead when that first happened, God, maybe that would have happened with that song, but I'm really glad it didn't, because I really hate that song. But
you're seeing No, No, No's praises right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that was that song and not No, No, No. But yeah, that's, I agree. They were all, I think they knew what they were doing. The record company, I think for once, was maybe trying to actually push this album by putting out 3 singles. I mean, they've got a big producer at the time for them, so I think they were probably trying to give them a bit of a chance at this, juncture, since they actually waited a whole year. It was, I think, 86 was the 1 year they didn't release an album.
Yep.
So they actually, took a chance and, went out and got a big producer. And, I think they didn't do really anything wrong, apart from the fact that the production is very dated for that year. The production sounded good for that time, but, I don't think that if they would have known that 10 years from now, people would have looked at it and said, wow, what a terrible production. Maybe they would have did something different. But at the time, it suited what was at the moment. So, I think that's the explanation for why they released what they did and why it sounds how it sounded. So,
yeah, I mean, it was for what was popular at the time. And, well, they released that in 87. They come back in 88 with 2 singles off of the Greatest Hits album. And Appetite for Destruction is like peaking in 1988. And they come out with 2 singles that are the biggest pile of shit in their catalog, in my opinion. And I'm going to sit here and I praise Kiss on this thing all day long, how much I'm a sucker and I buy anything they put out. But in my opinion, you got Appetite for Destruction like peaking in 1988, and people going crazy over Axl and Slash and the gang, and you get on MTV and you're singing "Let's Put the X in Sex" and doing your little dance, and it just looks ridiculous.
yeah.
And then you look even more ridiculous in the Rock Hard video. But
Oh, Jesus Christ Almighty! Bloody hellfire!
I don't know how much we need to go into this unless one of you just says, no, Rock Hard is a great song, it's in my top 5 or anything like that.
I doubt that'll happen.
No, is there anything we can really say about this album other than they probably should have done Strutter and Shouted Out Loud again as singles, since they'd already had several outings with those? They should have just used those pieces of crap as the throwaways on the B-side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really despise this record though. I didn't like the remixing of the songs that they did, like going back into the old songs and remixing. The reverb they put on was just dreadful. Like, God.
My problem is it's the top-selling Kiss album of the Unmasked era, and
I know.
everything it represents, from the packaging, the back cover, to the front cover, to the new songs, to the remixes, to the fucking hole in the record, is wrong. So,
Yeah.
and God bless him, and rest in peace, Eric. Beth, that just everything that's wrong with this record. So,
But I think Columbia House had a lot to do with that. I mean, I read that somewhere, and I actually kind of believe it, because when I was living back in my old place, like years and years ago, Columbia House was the big thing. This was back a long time ago, and I used to remember seeing, Smashes Thrashes being the selection of the month a few times. And you know how people are, they never return these things, so they keep getting them sent, and people never return them back, so they count them as a sale, right? And I think that got really juiced because of Columbia House. That's just my conspiracy theory on it, but that's what I think happened.
God, I hope so.
I wrote notes next to those 2 songs, and my notes were no and no. That's it. That's all I wrote. No. That's all I have to say about it.
You're not sitting around one night, you're not driving around and say, you know what, I really need to hear Let's Put the X in Sex right now. That really would pump me up.
Shit, it should have been the Sexapella mix anyway. I mean, come on.
But
Torture.
say what you want about Smashes, Thrashes, and Hitch and the production on. Well, one quick story about Smashes, Thrashes, and Hitch. I saw the Kiss Def Leppard show in St. Louis last summer with a buddy of mine and his wife. And we walked back to the car, and we rode together. I get in their car with them, and they're playing the radio station, local radio station in town, KC95, is playing just a lot of Kiss and Def Leppard after the show's over for your drive home from the concert. And they start playing Deuce, and my buddy and I look at each other. Which version of Deuce is this? Which album? Which version is it? It's a studio track, obviously. We're like, which version? And we both agreed that it was Smashes, Thrashes, and Hit's version of Deuce. We had we each had our 3 or 4 reasons why it was the Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits version of Deuce. And as we're discussing it, my buddy's wife says, "All right, that's enough. Stop it, both of you. You two are dorks."
Yep, that's awesome.
So that's my story for Smashes, Thrashes.
So that's how you evade answering the question, right?
Well, I started out and I said no. That they're awful tracks. But as soon as you went about Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits 2, it did sell well. Julian, you're right. It did sell well. And it was all the classic tunes on there. And because it sold well, I think is one of the reasons why on the Hot in the Shade tour, we got a lot of classic KISS songs back into the set list. And they stopped really pumping the Lick It Up, Animalize, and Asylum tunes in there. That they said, you know what, well maybe there is something with our past catalog that we've been basically ignoring over the last few tours. So as much as I don't like the production on Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits, as much as I don't like the 2 singles they released off of there, the one good thing to come out of that Greatest Hits album is that it did bring, and I think it's a big reason why a lot of those classic tunes were resurrected in the Hot in the Shade tour.
Agreed.
So, speaking of Hot in the Shade, we get 3 singles off of there also. Hide Your Heart with Betrayed, Forever with The Street Giveth, and Rise to It with Silver Spoon. 3 videos as well. It's MTV. Videos are just as important as the single release itself at this point. By 89 when Hot in the Shade is released. Hide Your Heart, obviously we all know that it's a leftover from Crazy Nights, and great song. Really one of my favorite songs out of the 80s from KISS. It was really great to hear them play it on tour this last summer with Def Leppard. They were playing that song and middle of the set list, and I went to the show and my wife went to the show with me in Chicago, and they're playing that, and a lot of the people around us didn't know Hide Your Heart. And, there's Def Leppard fans, there's KISS fans that are just there, it's KISS, and they're not maybe as hardcore. And I'm singing along the Hide Your Heart, and they get done playing that, and I look at her, I go, we could go now after hearing that song live. That's all I needed to hear. But I really like Hide Your Heart. It's one of my favorite tracks out of the era. Forever. Great song, obviously. It was their biggest hit of the 80s. Number 7, I think, on the charts. And just a great song. And I know a lot of fans have used it as like their wedding song even. It just resonates with a lot of people. It's just a great song. And Rise to It, well, you have like the beginning of it is very similar to Cinderella's Bad Seamstress Blues with the acoustic guitar starting it out. It's a great song. It's a good song also. And for me, I don't know what other 3 songs you would choose as singles off of Hot in the Shade, because I think after that it really kind of goes downhill in a hurry after those 3 songs. So I'm fine with the 3 singles that they chose off of there. 2 of the 3 songs I really, really like with Hide Your Heart Forever. So I'm totally good with their selections. Ken, what about you?
Hide Your Heart, I don't know if they should have. It's a great song. They maybe should have. Was it Ace Frehley did it, and
same day. They both came out the same day.
Bonnie Tyler.
Yep.
I want to say right.
Yep.
Okay.
And Molly Hatchet.
I remember it. Okay.
And Molly Hatchet too.
Molly Hatchet, right? So. It's kind of oversaturating that song into the market. So I don't know if that's a good or bad decision, but it's a obvious choice, a great song, good song. Forever for the second song is another, perfect written power ballad by Paul. Now, Rise to It, I don't know if I would have went with that. I would have went with something different. I throw a Gene song in there. For me, I would have went with Cadillac Dreams. I kind of like that song, but That's the only difference I would have, I guess. Otherwise, but Hide Your Heart. I just don't know if that was the right thing to do. Release it with all these other songs at the same time.
All right. That's fair enough, though. I mean, yeah, Hot in the Shade came out the same day that The Trouble Walking came out. And they both had Hide Your Heart on the albums, which is
so everyone's comparing
kind of bizarre, to say the least.
Comparing the arrangement of them the same day.
Julian, what about you for Hot in the Shade?
You know, I'm not a fan of Hide Your Heart, though obviously Vegas, it was a great experience to get that one live. I think I would have shied away from that, knowing that everyone and their dog was releasing the song. What it basically did was the oversaturation took what would have been a great song and totally killed it for every single act that was, recording it. So, I mean, obviously they didn't all release it as a single, but I think it devalued it to the point where they probably should have, gone with Rise to It first. I think Rise to It is a great rock song. I don't think it has the blues intro on it, on the full power guitar mix, or whatever the hell they call that. But I can't remember off the top of my head. I would have gone with that first, instead of Hide Your Heart, and just Forever You Can't Change. It was actually number 8 on Billboard. So a massive hit for the band at a time where no one gave a damn. But it didn't translate into album sales. So for single number 3, I think Read My Body. You really have to release that as a single, because it is by far the best song the band has ever recorded. And
have another beer.
No. No one's that stupid. I would actually have gone with, I don't know, a Gene song. I think he's starting to rehabilitate himself in the hits era, so maybe you could have thrown him a bone and given him an A-side, but I just don't really know what you'd frickin' well choose. Love's a Slap in the Face, maybe. Or Prisoner of Love, Just don't use Hide My Heart. Or Hide Your Heart. Yeah, hide something. Just maybe, anything but.
Maybe Read My Body would have worked better if they changed it to Read My FAQ Post. My KissFAQ Post. No? Okay.
Or not.
Or not.
Mark, what about you for Hot Shade?
Well, this is, we go from a record I really liked, like Asylum, to this record, which is, to me, I don't know if it's because of all the times I've read stuff about this album. I can't hear this as anything more than a bunch of demos slapped together and released as an album. The production of this is so flat. Honest to God, I think I could have mixed it better. I swear to God. It's the songs on it are, for some of them are actually pretty good. I do like Rise to It. I do like Hide Your Heart. I think Forever is actually my favorite Kiss ballad that they've ever done. I think it's great. I think of anything, that song has Eric Carr stamped all over it. His drumming is the thing that really stands out, I think, on that song, ironically enough. In Forever, I really love the way he drums on that song. That's one of those songs that when they play it with Eric Singer, they do it great, but he doesn't have the same gusto that Eric Carr had with that song.
Except isn't it Eric Singer who played on the demo, and Eric Carr just played it over?
Uh-oh.
Oh, did he really?
I'm not going to surf the internet.
Don't question the boss.
Sounds like something I read.
It sounds familiar.
Really?
Yeah, which might be a mind-blowing thing for you.
That's ironic, though, because if you watch, when I was watching him do it like on a live stream, all the Revenge era stuff, when Eric Singer's playing it, he doesn't play it anywhere near as well as the studio version, so I don't know. I find he plays it too pedestrian live, I don't know. But the song is good. I really do like that. Why they didn't use Vinnie Ponce as a producer? He's on like about 4 or 5 of these songs as a co-writer with them. Why not just have him come in and, produce it? It probably would have sounded a hell of a lot better. I'm sure it wouldn't have sounded like Dynasty again. But I'm sure it would have sounded better than the production that they had, on that record. But Rise to It, I think, is a okay third single. I mean, like I said, I like the song, but I agree. I think Gene should have probably been given a song. Believe it or not, I actually do like Betrayed. Maybe I would have even selected that as his single for the third one. I mean, it's not horrendous, but it's not too bad. I mean, like you said, I think he's starting to see the light at this point and slowly drifting his way back into the fold. So I would have maybe given him a shot at something at that point. But yeah, I mean, Hide Your Heart, like you said, everybody released that song. It seemed to be the big popular song at the time. But, it's not a bad song. It's not a great song in my eyes. I think they should have put something else first and put that out later. I agree with Julian on that. So, but, yeah, I just have a problem with the production of this record and consequently the production of the singles because they're obviously off the record. So, yeah, that's my 3 cents on that.
That's cool. And then I say this all the time. It's one of the great things about being a KISS fan is that we all have different opinions. And we're all fans of different eras and different styles. But we're all KISS fans at the end of the day. We all have different opinions. Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about it. So. Well, Julian and Mark, your Asylum is my revenge. And Julian's just going to bow out here for a minute because he doesn't want to hear it again. But 4 singles off Revenge, really 5 with God Gave Rock and Roll to You, which came out, obviously before that. Unholy, I Just Wanna, Domino, and Every Time I Look at You. 5 videos for all 5 of those songs as well. I remember the first time I saw Unholy on MTV. I was 92, so I was like between 7th and 8th grade, and I guess I wasn't in between. It was spring. It was the spring, I guess, because Revenge came out in May. And I saw that, and I was just turned me from KISS fan to KISS fanboy with when Unholy came out, and couldn't, had to go out and get the record. And I loved every song on it. I Just Wanna Say What You Want About that song. They played it during the reception of my wedding. I love that song so much. So. Domino, cool Gene track. If it was me, I would have switched Domino to be the second single, and I Just Wanted to be the third single. Because Gene's songs are really, really strong on this album. And I think that would have resonated better for the reception of the album. But as much as I like Paul Stanley, and as much as it took Paul Stanley to say, okay, Gene, you can have the first single off the new album, I don't think Paul was willing to let Gene have the first and the second single off the new album. So I think that's why we get I Just Want as a second single. And Every Time I Look at You, you guys, Mark, you said that Forever is probably your favorite KISS ballad. Every Time I Look at You is my favorite KISS ballad by far. It's incredible, and MTV Unplugged version of it is even better, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's perfect. Every Time I Look at You, MTV Unplugged is just perfection to me. That's a single off of MTV Unplugged, so we'll get that in a minute. But I have I'm not going to be much of a critic off of these because I have no problem with any of these singles. I can't say anything negative about the album, so I'm going to stop talking. So because I'm just going to sit here and praise Revenge if I keep talking. So let's just throw it out to someone who's not going to agree with everything I have to say. Julian, what do you have to say about the singles off Revenge?
I agree with you. About Every Time I Look at You. But yeah, that gets in. That is one of the finest KISS ballads. So obviously, it didn't do sod all. I don't think it was even a proper single in most markets. So Unholy, yeah, it was time for Gene to have an A-side. The rehabilitation of Gene Klein is completed in 1992, and Bob Ezrin tells Paul Stanley, "You will release a Gene song." So whatever. I don't happen to like it, but I see the reason for it. It makes sense. It's just not very good. I think I Just Wanna is crap. As a single, I mean, come on, Summertime, and rather than doing the ripoff of Summertime Blues, they should have just done Take It Off, which would have been a better summer song to kind of pimp. It's like Crazy Nights again. So it's a good summer song. I think it could have had more traction. Again, I'm not a fan of the album. I like stuff like Heart of Chrome on the album, so that sums it all up for a lot of people that says, okay, you've got no fucking credibility whatsoever because you like that song. And that's fine. Domino, I would never release as a single, but I kind of see, oh, well, this is just like Christine 16, only younger. So, not a good choice. So, God Gave Rock and Roll to You, too. Great song. Obviously, that's the 91 single. Can't fault that. Can't fault Every Time I Look at You. Understand Unholy. Can't really change much. So, Take It Off instead of I Just Wanna. And I'll just settle for the rest.
Mark, what about you for Revenge?
Well, Revenge is actually kind of an interesting album for me. I remember the introduction of it, like when I first heard it. I was starting a band up, and the guy was playing second guitar with me. I went over to his house to go over some songs, and he said, okay, before we start, I gotta let you hear something. You turned on the CD player, and he goes, what do you think this is? And he started, and all of a sudden, the droning of the guitars coming from Unholy starts up, and it starts up. And I'm listening to it, and I go, it really sounds like Gene Simmons. And I go, is this Kiss? He goes, yeah, man, this is a new Kiss album. And I thought, like, when I first heard it, I was like, wow, like, I think with this record, what was interesting is that everybody that I know had the same first reaction to when they heard this. They go, holy shit, this thing is really heavy. Like, they thought it was unbelievable. Like, my drummer loathed Kiss. He can't stand them. He thought Peter Criss was like the worst drummer on the face of the earth. He thought that he could have drummed better than with one arm tied behind his back. Right, like he hated Peter Criss and anything to do with Kiss. But when he heard that record, he was like, "Wow, this is really good." Like he loved Eric Singer's drumming. He thought everything was great about it. He actually thought that for once they actually, had some more modern sounding guitar sounds finally. And everybody that I know loved it on first listen. It's what happened after you started listening to it the third and fourth and fifth time that I noticed it was interesting that people started really analyzing it and going, well, this Spit song is really stupid actually, and Domino, this isn't really that hot, it's just if it, it just sounds heavy. If it had if it wasn't produced as well, it would be garbage, and that's when I started noticing people's take on it. It's like the first reaction to it was thumbs up, everybody loved it, but then as soon as they started listening to it more and more, it started going downhill in everybody's mind for some reason. Now, for me, I like Unholy. I do like God Gave Rock and Roll to You. And I don't mind Every Time I Look at You. I mean, it's not their worst ballad. I think it's pretty good. I do agree it's 100 million times better on MTV Unplugged. That's for certain. But, the one thing I will say is that the Gene songs on this album are better than prior. I think Paralyze is pretty good, and even Thou Shalt Not is not too bad. But, as far as the singles go, I do agree that I would have put Take It Off on there for sure instead of Domino. I mean, Unholy is the strong Gene song in my opinion, and I think they should have put Take It Off on there for Paul. God Gave Rock and Roll to You is a good one because it has both of them singing, so no one can really bicker in that one, right? That's kind of like both of their single. And, when you want to have the ballad in there, so you have Every Time I Look at You, but, I Just Want It, I never really liked that song to begin with. I mean, whether it's a single or not, I could care less. So, but I think that what they had out for singles were good, and I think Bob Ezrin did a good job on producing it, but, to me, honestly, I think everything that Bob Ezrin touched with Kiss is really overrated. I think Destroyer's overrated. I think this record was overrated. Elder's definitely overrated. Bob Ezrin did good stuff with Pink Floyd, but he didn't do too hot shit with Kiss, in my opinion. So,
but he's Canadian.
Mark, I think I'm losing the heat here.
Sorry, we've lost reception. What's that?
Well, I mean, and I've met Bob Ezrin. He's a nice guy. I mean, he's, he runs a music school up in Vancouver. Nimbus, I think it's called.
Yeah, Nimbus.
And with Garth Richardson, and my singer in the band actually was going to school there, so we got to meet Garth and Bob and them. They're great guys, but I mean, I think Bob did much better work with other bands than with KISS. That's just my opinion. I mean, sure, you can egg me all you want about that, but I think he did better stuff with Floyd. I think he did better stuff with Alice Cooper for sure, and
Yeah, so maybe KISS are a little bit Ezrin's sloppy leftovers, because obviously he'd done big Cooper albums before he did Destroyer. Obviously he'd done The Wall before, he did The Elder, and what had he done in the early 90s before Revenge? I mean, is KISS just like the second helpings?
Yeah, possibly. Sorry. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, it just seems ironic, though, that every time he was involved with KISS, he seemed to be favoring a white powder of some sort. Because, I mean, Destroyer, there was, that story about the mirror on the mixing board. Elder, it's pretty well known that he was, neck deep in many things then. He wasn't even showing up at the recording sessions. But, maybe for this record, he's probably kept it clean. But... And consequently, it's my favorite production of the 3 records that he did.
Well, what's the common denominator there? Gene and Paul. Maybe they cause white powder issues.
Excellent point, Julian. I don't know. I have a hard time agreeing with you, Mark, if you're dissing albums that contain Unholy and God Gave Rock and Roll to You and Detroit Rock City and
Spit, the bigger the cushion, the harder the pushing. Come on. Really? It should have been a single, man. Should have been a single.
It's enough out of you. Ken, what do you think about it?
Well, I'm going to drink the Lonnie Kool-Aid.
Nice.
I'm going to agree pretty much with Lonnie to the degree that even I would have put Domino as number 2. That was that's what I wrote down. So... It's one of their, to me, it's even that and Lick It Up are my favorite 2 unmasked, non-makeup albums. So those kind of run hand in hand for me. So the other one, I would have put, I Just Wanna, actually, I would have really maybe replaced with God Gave Rock and Roll to You, even though I think it may have been released as part of the soundtrack of Bill and Ted's movie. I still think it was a good enough song to try to get it over the, as Spinal Tap says, over the cliff. I agree with you, Lonnie, pretty much right on. I'm good with it. I think Bob Ezrin, I guess his flavors change, not also in drugs, but maybe in producing styles. But, maybe he'll produce the next KISS album because he just produced, a Deep Purple album, right, recently. So maybe KISS is going to, end it with Bob Ezrin.
Julian and Mark, wouldn't that be great?
We can only hope, right?
Hey, if they finish their career with Ezrin or Kramer, all will be good.
Kramer.
Please, Kramer, please.
Just at this point for me, and I'm a bit of a Paul fanboy. Anyone but Paul producing, whether it's Bob Rock, I don't give a shit. If I had to go for 2 of the old ones, Kramer or Ezrin, fine. Just give them control and no excuses. Don't
for the ears.
Yeah, don't do unto them as they did to Fairburn. So, saying he had control. Yeah, right, bullshit. But sorry, off topic, tangent. I'll shut up and drink.
We'll get to the production later on. So, Alive 3, you get 2 singles off there. I Love It Loud and Detroit Rock City. That's fine. I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, I Love It Loud. obviously wasn't on either of the other two live albums. To have a cool live version of that released as a single, that's cool to me. In Detroit Rock City, I get that too as a single. I mean, it's one of their biggest hits. We could throw that out there as a single off the live album, try to get people to go pick up the new live album. I don't know. What do you guys think about the singles off of Live 3? I really don't have an issue with them, or I don't have a strong opinion either way with singles off a live album in general. I don't have a strong opinion really either way with them. So, Julian, what do you think about that?
I don't think the singles really mattered for the live album. I think in terms of getting the promotional product out there, I Love It Loud made sense. Again, it's a Gene single, so it resonated well live in concert. Detroit Rock City, that's just kind of we've got nothing better to think about. Just throw out the old anthem again. If I want to overthink it, I'd say, well, why didn't they do the live version of Creatures of the Night or Deuce? Something with a little bit more balls. Either of those first two tracks. But there's no point. A Live 3, blah.
Yeah, I'm a fan. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I agree pretty much with Julian. I mean, when it comes to live records, I mean, it's just, I think they just pretty much just throw all the names in a hat and pick out two, and these are the ones that are going to be picked, because, I mean, it's songs that you already know if you're the fan of the band. I mean, it's nothing new. It's just a live version of the song, right? I mean, I Love It Loud is a good song. I mean, so is Detroit Rock City. They're both strong live songs for them, so I mean, I guess it makes sense to select them. But like you said, you could have picked, you could have even picked Heaven's on Fire live, or you could have picked, Creatures of the Night live. Those are strong as well. I mean, anything you could have picked off it, I think, would have justified as singles. I mean, the one thing I remember mostly about the Alive 3 era is going to the HMV here in my town and seeing there was a huge poster promoting Kiss Alive 3 with Gene, blowing fire. And I remember that was like the big thing. I mean, me and my friends went and got the posters and brought them home. And I mean, I think that did more for getting Alive 3 into our brain as far as going out and buying it than any single did, to be honest. So, like I said, I think any single could have been selected for that moment. Live albums, I think, are sort of like that. It's just, you can't really go wrong.
It's a live album composed of good songs anyway. So if they chose two other singles off there, I think we'd be sitting here having the same discussion. Well, it really doesn't matter that they couldn't use Detroit Rock City if they wanted to. So, Ken, what do you think?
I would have picked Creatures of the Night as the single. We talked about Creatures back when we were going over that album. I think you guys were saying that Creatures of the Night should have been released as a single. So there's the opportunity there to do it, and it's a good version of it live. That would be as far as I would go with singles off of that. Really, you can do Star Spangled Banner off of it. I don't know, So, yeah, Creature of the Night for me.
Sure. Yeah. All right, so MTV Unplugged, another live album. Two singles off of that one as well. Every Time I Look at You and Rock and Roll All Night. We sung praises to Every Time I Look at You off of MTV Unplugged a little bit ago. So obviously I see why that was chosen as a single. It's fantastic on that album. It's just absolutely amazing. And Rock and Roll All Night as a single, well, the wheels are spinning. You have Ace and Peter trading off vocals on the second verse. So there's definitely reasons why that was chosen to be a single as well. So what else is there? I mean, MTV Unplugged is one of my favorite Kiss albums from their catalog, and just up and down, start to finish. It's great from Coming Home to Sure Know Something to Do You Love Me, just See the Night, World Without Heroes. Everything on there is great. It's just they were really rehearsed, and what they brought out on that album is just fantastic to me. But the two singles off there, I totally agree with. Also, did they do a whole lot? No, not really. But why they were chosen as singles, I can totally understand why. So, Julian, what about you?
Yeah, I don't even think they need Every Time I Look at You. Rock and Roll All Night went to 13 on the mainstream rock. None of the shit's getting played on the radio by this time anyway. It's all, there's no programming left. They're told what to play, so the days of a single actually having any purpose is pretty much gone. Yeah, Every Time I Look at You is absolutely stunning on this album, but how many people actually heard it on the radio?
Heard Rock and Roll All Night.
Rock and Roll All Night, we heard. I remember hearing that as well. So I never heard Every Time I Look at You. So therefore, it's a moot point, really, to me. I mean, on that album, if you want to go with the two power ballads, it's I Still Love You or that, and they're both absolutely killer performances. But no one would have fucking cared. So as long as Rock and Roll All Night's there for with Peter and Ace, purpose is served.
Ken, what about you?
Yeah, Every Time I Look at You is a much better version on the Unplugged. Great song. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, the only alternative, Rock and Roll All Night, we've done it already a couple times. I would have went with something like, I love Going Blind off of Unplugged. And even See You Tonight works.
Yeah.
I would have went with all those two as the second one. Rock and Roll Night, I didn't need it as another single.
Totally understandable, too. Mark, what about you?
Well, I think Julian hit the nail on the head there, because, there's many songs besides Every Time I Look at You, and don't get me wrong, I think, like you guys said, I think it's the greatest version of that song that you'll hear is on that album. But, of course, there's other great songs on there too. I really liked Got to Choose. I think, See You Tonight, like you said, was really good. There's a lot of songs on there, but what was going to happen. You knew the minute you saw the track listing, everyone was looking at it going, this, Rock and Roll Night? Okay, and that's, that was going to be what they're going to pick. It's just DJ mentality is let's just go to the familiar and that's it, right? And really, they're going to play that anyways, because as soon as they find out that the original guys are on there as well, Ace and Peter, well, boom, it's a no-brainer now. Why would we put some of the other songs that were vastly better played and, that sound better when we can just play Rock and Roll All Night for the 900 millionth time on radio, except this time it's, live, from an unplugged session, right? So, I don't want to sound bitter about the selection, but, really, do we need another version of Rock and Roll All Night? Like, come on, man. How many times are you going to release this song? Give me a break. So, but I understand why they did it. You got to think business and think of, what's going to sell and push the record. And, of course, that's going to do it, right? So, there you go.
Yeah. You got Ace and Peter singing on there, and you got the reunion wheel spinning. So, totally get why they did it. So. All right. So, we move on a couple of years now, really, to Carnival of Souls in 97. Which didn't get a whole lot of promotion, and they just kind of put it out because it was circulating so heavily in the bootleg circuit, so just so they could reap a little bit of money off of it. Two singles off Carnival, Souls, Jungle, and Master of Slave. I remember hearing Jungle on the radio when it was released. I don't think I ever heard Carnival. I don't think I ever heard Master and Slave on the radio. But Jungle, good song. Julian said he liked it better when Deep Purple recorded it. But it's a good song, and it's it's one of the better ones off of Carnival of Souls. If I was to choose, and I really liked Master and Slave, especially when I first heard it and when I got Carnival of Souls on the bootleg. I was really digging Master and Slave at the time. But for me, I don't think I would have went with it as a single. I guess I would have went with Hate as a single because I really enjoy that one also. But I really don't think it would have mattered much because of the lack of promotion for the album. That I don't think a second single off of Carnival of Souls was going to do anything, no matter what the second single was off of there. The bands in the studio were trying to get into the studio to do Psycho Circus at this point, and they're just putting it out there just for the sake of putting it out there. But Jungle, good song. I would have went with Hate for my second one. Mark, what about you?
Well, this is actually a record I kind of actually like. I mean, but to quote Paul Stanley on a different KISS record, this is a really good record, but not a really good KISS record. To me, this sounds very much like they were obviously following trends at that point again. You know, they wanted to be, you know, Alice in Chains or whoever at this point. But, you know, I actually like this record after it's all said and done. I mean, I actually do listen to this record quite a bit in my car. And I really like Hate. I do like Master and Slave. I mean, this is one of the rare records I can honestly say that I think Gene actually put some thinking behind his songs for once. I mean, but the problem is they just don't really sound like KISS songs to me. They just sound like, you know, their attempt at doing something heavier and grungier. You know, there's no party element or happy-go-lucky rock and roll to it at this point. You know, now it's just, you know, they want to try to pretend that they're bitter and upset at the world when, you know, it's kind of hard to believe that when you have, you know, as much money as they do, right? So, but it's, you know, as far as the singles go, I think that, you know, we just kind of touched on, you know, the fact that, you know, the Jungle was the single. It's a good song. Probably didn't do anything. The fact that they even released a second single is a total surprise to me, because I thought that, you know, as little attention they put to it, why did they even bother with another single? I mean, you know, the only way it would have probably got any traction is if this lineup would have did a version of maybe if they would have did Rock and Roll Night on this, maybe they would have played that, you know, the Carnival of Souls version of Rock and Roll, you know. So, but you know, I liked the record, but you knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. As soon as the reunion started, this was just, you know, just to shut the fans up and give them an official release of it, and that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. Ken, what about you for Carnival of Souls?
I agree with Jungle, and yeah, why another single? But I would have went with I Will Be There as a second single, just to show a different side of things there, and I really like that song. But yeah, there's no promotion on this thing. They're not promoting it, so why waste money putting, you know, plastic out?
Yeah, you talk about promotion of that album. I mean, I remember when the day it came out, I went to Best Buy to get it, and it wasn't even out on the shelf. I had to go to another music store to try to track it down and find it. There was such little promotion and such little hype for that album. So. Julian, what about you for Carnival of Souls?
Jungle, great choice, actually. You know, it was a bit of a minor radio hit, getting to number 8 on the mainstream rock chart, so they hit the nail on the head with that one. I just don't think, as a throwaway album, just getting it out there, that they should have bothered with the second album. The second single. Master and Slave, great song. Radio friendly? No. So why bother? Just put out Jungle, forget the second single, move on. You know, it was already into, I think, January 98 when Master and Slave actually started getting some airplay. So it was December it comes out, doesn't do a thing, just pointless. Just move on, wait until Circus have a little bit more downtime. I can't think of anything that I'd replace it with either, other than just saying just one single from this one and be done with it.
2 singles off Carnival of Souls, 1 off Asylum. Really kind of high. So Psycho Circus, you get 2 off of that. Title track, phenomenal choice. Best song on the album. And I remember the first time I heard it on the radio, I was working at a golf course, and I was in the bag room, and it came on, and I just had to stop and listen to it. It was the reunion KISS song. You know, it was your first sampling of the album. I just had to listen to it. It was amazing then, and I really enjoy the song now to this day. It's a great track. You Wanted the Best as the follow-up single. I couldn't disagree more with that being the follow-up single. That is up there with Read My Body as far as KISS tracks in general go. It's a pile of garbage. Second single off of Psycho Circus. I don't know. I don't know. Psycho Circus. It's so bittersweet to me because I was so excited for the album to come out, and to have a KISS album featuring Gene, Paul, Ace, and Peter. And before the album even came out, I was starting to hear stuff off websites like the KissFAQ message board talking about how it might not even be all four members on there, and it just pissed me off immediately, even before I bought it, because I was hearing rumors about it, and I didn't want to believe it, but if there's enough smoke, there's fire, and come to find out, it really wasn't. And when you listen to the album, I'm not a big musician, but I guess a little bit, but I'm not like a big musician that I know, like, oh, that's so and so playing on that, and that's so and so playing on that. But you can kind of, I could kind of, when I listened to it, I was like, that's not Peter Criss playing on all those tracks, and really just left a bad taste in my mouth. But for my second single off of Psycho Circus, because you got to have a second single to follow up that with the KISS reunion record, I guess I would have really went with a Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll. It's a good party anthem type KISS song. So that would have been my choice. Sorry, Gene. I would have went with two Paul songs. Julian, what about you?
Yeah, Gene's material on this album really isn't single friendly. In fact, it's not ear friendly, to be honest. Psycho Circus is a good lead-off track. I mean, obviously it's the album, it's the marketing campaign, it's everything about Kiss 98, so can't change that. As much as, I was never a big fan of the song. It's grown on me in recent years, so it seems to have a little bit more legs, and it hit #1 on the mainstream rock charts, so obviously we're not talking about the Billboard charts anymore because we're way into the, well, I guess where the old fogies live.
We're talking Spice Girls at this point, 1998, charts. So.
Yeah, so, the second single, You Wanted the Best, I mean, just, if I have to have a second single off this to try and do anything, I go with, one of the Ace or Peter tracks because,
Really? You want to go on the Peter track?
No, I'm saying the Ace or Peter tracks because, they're back in the band. So Into the Void would be my second pick. I mean, I agree with you with I Pledge Allegiance. It's a good party song. It's very accessible. But I would have put the Ace song out there. I know in Sweden they released I Finally Found My Way to You, which I guess it's got to be a Swedish thing. Don't know. Maybe someone can explain that to me. But, You Wanted the Best? No. Within? No. Gene? No. So, it's not his moment on this album, so not a lot of choice on this one.
I agree. Ken, what about you?
Psycho Circus, great song. From the first time I heard it, it's fantastic. So that's perfect first single. I have to disagree with Julian about Gene. I think We Are One is another great song, and to me it has a hook. It does have a hook to it, and it's not a typical Kiss sounding song. I think it's a great song. I also like Journey of 1,000 Years, but that would not be a single. But I love that song. So I'm going to go with Psycho Circus, no brainer, of course, and We Are One as the second one. I don't know what the heck they were thinking with You Wanted the Best. If you wanted the best, why did you release that song? That's not the best.
Yeah, shit out of luck.
I wanted the best. I didn't want You Wanted the Best. But anyway.
Mark, what about you for Psycho Circus?
Well, again, this is one of these records where I was really, really excited. I mean, the reunion tour was the first time I saw the band in makeup, so I was neck deep in the excitement with it. I went and saw the shows a couple times, and I was getting excited to hear this. And I remember I went out and bought the record, and I was with some of my bandmates in the car, and we're listening to it. And I'll never forget this. My drummer, Jerry, sitting in the back, and he hasn't said nothing for the first 5-6 songs. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror and going, "Hey, what's up, dude? What's going on?" And he looked at me and he smirked and he goes, "Dude, He goes, "I'll eat my running shoes if this is Peter Criss drumming on this thing." I go, and I didn't believe him. I go, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Those four guys." He goes, "Dude," he goes, "Peter Criss can't do these fills. Like my drummer at that time, he was one of these really like in-depth, knowledgeable drummer guys. He like loves Mike Portnoy and all these guys, so he's like really studied on it. And he was just picking it apart, saying this is not Peter Criss." So that was one of the first strikes to me on the record when I was like, okay, so they're already lying to us that there's not the original members on this. But getting back to the songs themselves, "Psycho Circus" I think is a great song. Whether Peter Criss drummed on it or not, which I'm pretty sure he didn't, obviously.
Did not.
It's a great song. I love that song. It's their updated version of a Detroit Rock City, right? I think it's a great single. I'm with you guys with saying I have no clue what was going through their head with "You Wanted the Best." That song is just hideous, utter garbage. I don't understand. It just stinks of like crud to me. Like this song, I don't know what they're trying to tell us. Like that we're all buddies here, and they're trying to make this image like they're all in a circle holding hands and singing and happiness. We're back together again, and we're so happy about it. It's just, come on, like I didn't buy that for a minute. I knew they were probably smirking at each other and just talking behind each other's backs. They weren't in any kind of unison at this point. So, but I would have put anything else but that song there. I would have probably stuck "I Pledge Allegiance." That's a really good song. I really like that song. I think that would have done a hell of a lot better than "You Wanted the Best." I don't know why they picked that, like I said. But the one thing I'm kind of confused about is for some reason on Wikipedia, it says there that the singles from this album are "Psycho Circus," "We Are One," "I Finally Found My Way," and "You Wanted the Best." Now, I understand now what the "I Finally Found My Way" is. You explained that that's in Sweden. So where was "We Are One" released as a single?
Europe and Australia.
Oh, okay. So that explains that.
You got it right.
Yeah.
Was I right?
I don't know.
Wikipedia got it right.
I said Europe got it right.
Oh. But yeah, I mean, I think "Psycho Circus" is a home run, and "You Wanted the Best" certainly isn't.
And don't forget, when Mike ran Kiss Online, he did a giveaway of what was supposed to be the second single, because they'd done an acetate of "Within," wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, "Within" as the second single.
Really?
Fucking stick a fork in my eyeballs.
Yeah, I remember listening to the Dodger Stadium show was like broadcast on the radio, and I was listening to it. Julian, obviously you were there, and they went into it "Within." I couldn't believe they were even. I mean, I knew they were going to play some songs off the new album, but I couldn't believe they were even going to play that. It just didn't resonate with me at all. Why? There's other choices you could play, even off "Psycho Circus" and "Within" to play that lot.
Yeah, I think they could have done "Read My Body" instead of "Within."
The third "Read My Body" reference tonight.
Yep. Oh, I guess we're using that as the insult tonight.
All right, so we wait 9 or 11 years, and
We forgot one.
we talked about that last week. Holy shit!
Off that list, I did just want to interject with that I left off the Detroit Rock City soundtrack. So please continue to Sonic Boom.
Yeah, we're just gonna skip over that. We talked about how much we hated that last week. So, Sonic Boom, 2009. We get 3 singles off of that: "Modern Day Delilah," "Say Yeah," and "Never Enough." "Modern Day Delilah," great song. Great way to show the band back in the studio. Great song. I absolutely love it. "Say Yeah," I love that. That's a great song in my opinion. I like Sonic Boom a whole lot, and I like it more than I like Monster. And I know a lot of people out there like Monster more than they like Sonic Boom, but for me, Sonic Boom is much better than Monster. But, "Modern Day Delilah," "Say Yeah," I agree with that. And "Never Enough" as the third single. I remember hearing Modern Day Delilah and Say Yeah on the radio here. I don't think I ever heard Never Enough on the radio.
Well, you did. It was just
when I heard Nothing But a Good Time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
He probably didn't want to get sued again like he had with Dreamin'.
Right, they already went down that road before. So, I wouldn't have chosen Never Enough as a third single. I would have chosen the Gene track.
Yeah.
I definitely would have, and for me, it would have been Yes I Know. Would have been my choice as a Gene song. Personally, I really like Modern Day Delilah and Say Yeah, but Yes I Know is probably my favorite song off that album. I think it has the most 70s type of vibe to it, and that's really what they were going for with Sonic Boom, was to try to create an album that could stand up to the original six. I think was their intention more than anything, which is, they always say the next album is the next Destroyer anyway, as compared to those classic albums. But Modern Day Delilah, Say Yeah, and instead of Never Enough, I would have went with the Gene song, and I would have went with Yes I Know. And I really wish they would have tried that live on the Sonic Boom tour instead of I'm an Animal, which to me, when they played I'm an Animal on that tour, it just kind of plunged along. And we're at the shows, and my brother's looking at me like, really? And I'm like, I know. Why are you doing this? I mean,
don't do this to me.
My brother wants to take a piss.
Beer break.
So, those would be my three. Mark, what about you?
Well, I remember, again, waiting for this record to come out, and, hearing all the usual hoopla from Gene, the next Destroyer, and, when it came out, it was not the next Destroyer, but it wasn't, it wasn't the Elder either. It was pretty good. I mean, they've had better records, but they've had worse records, so Modern Day Delilah is a pretty strong first single, I think. It's a good Paul song. It has all the strong elements of a single, right there. And you can't really say anything too much bad about this song, I don't think. I mean, they believed in it enough to open their shows with it, so it's got to be a pretty strong song amongst the whole band in general, I would imagine. Say Yeah is another one of those, it's a catchy Paul song. I mean, at this point, Paul, I think, is writing to a formula, like a Paul Stanley kind of, blueprint for what he thinks is a strong song for him. And Say Yeah definitely falls into that bracket, I think. The kind of, rah, rah, rah song. And, it's not terrible. It's not fantastic either. I agree with everybody, though, that as far as the third single, I would have definitely given Gene a song, and I agree with what was said earlier about the fact that I would have also put Yes I Know as the single, because I think that's Gene's strongest song on the record, in my opinion. And I really dug that song. I remember when I was first listening to the record, and Gene's first song, Russian Roulette, came on. I was like, this is not bad. It's it's better than what he had on the last couple of records. And then when Yes I Know came on, I was like, wow, this is it stuck out. It was catchy. It was to the point. It was 3 minutes long. It was I think Gene finally went through his little black book and found something that was decent enough to rework, and turned out to be a pretty good song. So I would have used that song for the the third single. I mean, I like the fact that they gave Eric and Tommy a song on the record, but I mean, they're really nondescript in my opinion. But that's just I could be wrong to the KISS masses there, but I don't think they're anything to really talk about in my opinion. So, but yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with giving Eric and Tommy a song, but they're not going to release an Eric and a Tommy lead song as a single off of an album, not off of these two albums or any albums in the future. It's fine to be on them, but it's not. No matter how good you think the song is, they're not going to release one of those songs as a single. There's no way. Ken, what about you?
I agree with Modern Day Delilah. Great song, best song on the album. Say Yeah, perfect second single. I'm part of the other side of the KISS Army, I guess. from Mark. I would have picked, I like All for the Glory. I really like that song a lot. Actually, I remember hearing that, them play that on ESPN.
Yeah.
For football.
Yeah.
College, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's cool. And they actually worked with the actual clips of football. So it was kind of one of those Paul Stanley written songs that are, hey, it's an anthem in a way. So I like that song. That would have been my third single. Otherwise, the first two are, again, no-brainers.
Yeah, no doubt. Julian, what about you?
Yeah, I pretty much go with the consensus here. Modern day Delilah, and say, yeah, perfect first choices. Third single's more of a challenge. I would go with Stand. It's a Stanley Simmons composition. It's a little bit more epic. I wouldn't put any of the token material out, and that by that I mean the Eric and Tommy sung generic Spaceman and Catman bullshit songs. All for the Glory is a good song. Simple as that. So I agree with you, Ken, on that. And obviously it worked with the promotion, but I wouldn't put it out as a single. Stand is at least a little bit more, I guess, what you'd expect from Kiss. Not that I heard any of these frickin' songs on radio in the Bay Area. No. Simple as that. I don't recall hearing any one of these on the radio at all. You might as well put one of the re-recorded classics out in the Bay Area for as much as it would have gotten played. You'll hear Steve Miller. You're not going to hear the new Kiss song. Simple as that.
This area does not. SF Bay Area never played Kiss. I mean, hardly ever you could find a Kiss song playing.
Yeah, you might hear "Lick It Up" now and then, or "Calling Dr. Love." Those are the only two songs I can remember ever hearing on the Bone. So, I stopped listening to the Bone. I've got all the songs I want on my car, so fuck radio.
There you go.
Singles don't matter.
No, not at this point. Well, we got one more to go, and that's Monster. And we get two singles off of there. Hell or Hallelujah and Long Way Down. I'm not as big a fan of Monster as I am Sonic Boom. Yeah, I know that surprises a lot of people. A lot of people like Monster a lot more than they like Sonic Boom, but it I don't know, it just didn't do it for me as much as the other one did. Hell or Hallelujah, still play it, and they still play it. They played it in 12 when they toured with Motley before the album came out, and they still play it now live. They won't let it doesn't go away. It's a fine song to me. My wife's commenting in the background. She doesn't like the song. And it's fine. And Long Way Down, I like that a little better, I think, than Hell or Hallelujah. I would have gone with a Gene song. I would have gone with Wall of Sound as a single off of this album, and I think that the album could have been, and I think maybe I would like the album a lot more if it had like a different track listing, and maybe the album like started off with Wall of Sound, and like you hear those guitar screeches just to start off the album, and I think it might have hooked you in a lot more to the album, and especially in today's world with how we listen to music, and how if you would have started off the album with that, I think it might have generated a different vibe and a different feeling to the album, and maybe even call the album Wall of Sound, because there's no reason to call it Monster. There's no tie-in. I mean, they didn't even start using that Spider stage till 13. It wasn't tied into that really tour at all, even with Motley Crue and that. I know people are going to correct me. Well, they toured with Motley Crue before the album came out. I know that, but I would have called the album Wall of Sound, and I would have had Wall of Sound be the lead single and the first song on the album. And I think they could have made the album a whole lot different, in my opinion. So my two songs would be Wall of Sound and Long Way Down. Julian, what about you?
I'm maybe it's the elephant in the room. I would not have released a Paul song as a single for this album. with his vocal challenges. I hear them in the studio on this album. I love Long Way Down as a song. I think it's one of the best songs he's written in many years. Hallelujah, it's just a throwaway. If you can't say it, don't sing it, and don't release it. So that song didn't do much for me. I would have gone with Gene, and I agree, Wall of Sound. If any song was really worthy of putting out as a single that's not going to be heard by anyone, Wall of Sound is it. Because again, I didn't hear any of these songs on the radio. So, as I really said with the other album, it's become irrelevant at this point to even be putting singles out, unless you're Ace, in which case, Give Me a Feeling got a little bit of traction well in advance of the album coming out. Hallelujah was obviously out for the tour with Motley Crue, so it was just something to play. Motley had Sex, Kiss had that, but I really think we would have been better served, or the album would have been better served with a Gene song. It's 20-something years since Revenge. Give him the lead-off track, and kind of mask some of the Paul challenges.
Absolutely. They play. I went on the second Kiss cruise when they played a lot of the songs off of Monster, and they played Wall of Sound on those electric shows, and it really sounded cool live. And they played it, I think, maybe the first night or two of the South American tour, and then dropped a lot of those songs pretty quickly after that. But, Ken, what about you? What do you think for Monster?
When you said to change the track listing, it makes sense to me. But I thought you were going to say you're going to change the track listing and start off with Unholy on it. It's release Unholy. Revenge. We'll just put all the Revenge songs on Monster. Though I do agree with you that I like Sonic Boom better than Monster, too. A little bit better. Not a whole lot, but it's better production than a Monster. That Monster's stonewall. So I would have not released Hallelujah as the first single. Like Julian said, it can't say it.
You're drinking too.
Why?
I at least have an excuse.
I should be. I should be drinking something, but I would have went with. I thought they should have maybe taken a chance. A little gamble on this one, and I would have put out Freak as the first single. It's so different, but it's a good song. It's a good song. I do agree with Julian that Long Way Down is also another good song too. The Gene songs, well, I'm a big Gene fan when he's on his game, but I still don't think those are up to par. I mean, I do like Wall Sound, and Back to the Stone Age is pretty good too, but I think he can do better than that. I really think he can write better stuff than what he's writing there. So for me, Freak would have been my lead-off single as a kind of a gamble, saying, hey, look, I can do some other stuff here, a little bit different style, and see if it gets any traction.
Just imagine if they'd had Lady Gaga do Freak with them.
That was the rumor. I mean, it probably would have.
Wow, talk about a crossover that would have actually mattered.
Yeah.
It really would have
mattered. It would have gotten a lot of attention.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, insane.
But instead, they went with the Japan thing now. So.
Mama Claus.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, we are days away from a Scooby-Doo song, so hold your thoughts on that.
Days away.
Cross
Really?
your fingers.
Okay.
Mark, what about you for Monster?
Well, this might be surprising to many of the KISS people out there, but this is the one KISS record I have never gotten through completely yet. I've always listened to this record with the full intention of listening to it from beginning to end, and I put it on, and I've never gotten further than Shout Mercy. And I'm like, I don't know what it is about this record, but I just can't get past it. I mean, so sometimes it's just something happens, like I get a phone call, and I'll pause it, and I'll never get back to putting it back on again. or sometimes I'll actually literally sit down and listen to it, and I'll just, the mood will just leave me by that song for some reason. I don't know what it is. I mean, I think Hell or Hallelujah is a pretty decent song. I personally like Back to the Stone Age better than I like Wall of Sound, and for whatever reason, Freak does nothing for me. I don't know why that is, but it just doesn't do anything for me. And Shout Mercy, it just, I don't know, by some reason, my mind just checks out at that point, and I just don't listen to the rest of it. I mean, tomorrow, Kiss people, tomorrow I'm pulling out the album again, putting it in my car, because I know I'm going to probably have to do like a 35-minute drive, so I have full intention to get through more of it tomorrow than I ever have. But I've never listened to this record past song 5. I mean, so as far as me picking singles off it, all I can really say is Hell or Hallelujah is probably a decent first single, and if I was to pick a different one, I would probably just pick Back to the Stone Age. It's the one Gene song that I like out of the 5 songs that I've listened to from this record.
If one song I forgot about, and one song I really like on that album, actually, it's probably my favorite song on the, maybe my favorite song on the album outside of Wall of Sound is the bonus track, Right Here, Right Now. I really enjoyed that one, and I thought it should have really been not a bonus track. I thought it should have been included.
There's a bonus track?
Yeah. I thought it should have been more included on the album. I really enjoyed that song. It's a good motivational song. I run to it quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, it's way too good to be a B-side. You know, it's really good song. Agreed.
Thank you.
I didn't even know there was a B-side.
Well, it was in iTunes.
Yeah, it was on iTunes, and then it was included on the Japanese
version,
Monster Tour edition, or
Oh yeah, I saw that at the store.
along with some live tracks.
Just a funny side note, actually. You guys are talking about how you said you'd never hear any of these songs on the radio. Ironically, here in Toronto area, Hell or Hallelujah was being played a lot. I remember there was a time when I turned on the radio, and it was on almost every day for like a few weeks here in Toronto. Like, they were playing a lot of that, actually, especially around the time when the Motley Crue KISS tour was coming around. They were playing that a lot here in Toronto. I don't know why they weren't doing it more in other spots, but in Canada here, in Toronto at least, they were playing it a lot.
Right, this is the Bay Area, at least for Ken and myself. Ken, you could probably describe it a little bit better than I.
I could describe it better than you, though.
Be careful.
I'm not going to touch it.
Is it really that bad in that area? Like, I mean, this is supposed to be like the Bay Area, you know, Metallica came from here. I mean, you guys just...
Oh, yeah, Metallica, but...
I can't remember the last time I heard Metallica on the radio, apart from maybe Whiskey in a Freaking Jar.
They'll play that on the Bone maybe or something, which I don't listen to anymore.
Yeah, come on, Steven Seaweed throws a bone, man. Some real freaking rock.
Really, eh? Huh.
Well, that completes our singles discussion. Took us 2 long episodes to get through them all, but we finally did. Before we wrap things up, I want to give a quick shout out to 3 Sides of the Coin for their episode they posted this week with Bill Starkey. I've met Bill a few times. He's a super nice guy. He's a big Rams fan, so him and I get along pretty good when we meet up, have a little discussion about how crappy our football team is. And they have a long episode with Bill, but it's a great episode, and I encourage you guys to go out and listen to it. They do a great job interviewing. You learn quite a bit of stuff on there that I didn't know, and I don't think a lot of fans know either. Some great inside stuff.
Yeah, so I listened to that episode today, and you know what? Bill, Commander-in-Chief of the KISS Army. I mean, holy shit, this is the 40th anniversary this year of, Alive, the KISS Army, and so many things that are the foundation of the band. So hearing the stories from Bill's mouth about having to go to like the Indie Expo or any of the expos he's gone to is really cool. So, go check out that episode. It's another really good one.
Yeah, I heard it today as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's it, guys. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want you guys and everyone listening to have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. And
Canada Day tomorrow.
And
yes.
We'll see you guys next week. Real quick, too, if you are interested in participating on the show, be sure to leave us a private message or hit us up on the FAQ message board. We're interested in hearing other voices, especially if you are a female who is on the FAQ message board. I don't know how many females are on the FAQ message board, but I would love to have a female perspective on the show. I think it'd be very entertaining. So, for Julian, for Ken, for Mark, I am Lonnie Weishauer, stlkiss on the FAQ message board. Thank you for listening to the FAQ podcast. You stay classy, Kiss Army.